Okay, Igwa, you
Yeah.
can continue with the basic needs of case taking.
Okay, so when the person first shows up in our room or on our Zoom, as it may be, we want to observe them carefully and we want to ask them how they're doing and what we can help them with today. You know, how can I help you today? Kind of thing. And so we ask people to give the details of what's wrong, and we write things down carefully, and we leave space between writing things down. Now, in reality, after people have been practicing for a long time, they're going to probably do something a little bit different than what's given here. Like, Hahnemann says in Materia Medica Pura, I actually wanted to read this. I didn't actually get to prepare exactly the way I wanted to, because that's just the way the life goes, isn't it? So we do want to use our observation, and then after people have told us what's wrong with them, we want to investigate what the problem is by questioning as needed. And if certain areas of the body have not been mentioned during their talking, we want to ask, how is your digestion, etc. Do you have any problems walking, sleeping? We want to make it as open-ended as possible and try to get people just to talk. You can actually get a lot of information while people are just randomly talking to you about basic things. I mean, theoretically, you guys could all be analyzing me as I speak. Or I could be analyzing you as you speak or don't speak, or leave your things covered, or leave them open. Because each of these tells little bits about people. Okay. So Nasreen and everybody
Yes,
else,
ma'am.
do we have any questions about case taking and whether or not what we need to
Lot of-
know?
When patient comes to my room, I
Mhm.
blank out.
Oh,
Usually. So I
okay.
should take medicine first.
That's always a good idea. When you take medicine first, that is always a good idea, because the healthier we are, the better we are able to help others. Right, guys? Can I get a right on that? Anybody agree?
Yes, definitely.
What do you mean take medicine first?
No, the healthier we are, the easier it's going to be for us to help others.
Well, obviously, I personally wouldn't go to a homeopath that I don't see, that I feel is not healthy physically or mentally, emotionally.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because Nasreen was saying that she gets blanked out when she has somebody who comes to her clinic. And that's not a good place to be in, right?
Lots of people have problems while case taking.
Mhm.
The first issue everyone faces in early phases is how to approach.
Yeah.
We
It might
have,
help to make a list.
and basically, we see homeopath face this issue, how to gather those symptoms. There are lots and lots and bigger list of symptoms you might get, but how to focus on those symptoms which are actually very important for us as homeopath. So I think we should begin with issues everyone facing, because whatever I have difficulties at this phase of time is will be a totally different what other new homeopath have. They might have faced something different. So I think we should begin with new homeopath first.
I could say that I have difficulty taking the case and repping it at the same time and looking at the different medicines. I still cannot do both at the same time.
So,
Yeah.
can I comment?
Sure.
Initially, I used to do it at the same time, and I stopped. And I realized that if I was doing it at the same time that they were talking, I was either concentrating on one more than the other. So they would continue talking, and I may miss out on important details. So when I started going back to just writing the case as they told me, and at the end, actually maybe tell them, give me a day or so to come up with the remedy, I found that better. And if I did the finding the rubrics calmly and collectively and seeing the whole case at the end it was better for me than just trying to repertorize and being in a hurry that I have to give a remedy before they left. Just the mere pressure of rushing and trying to give a remedy before they left the room was, to me, more pressure. And I find that when I give myself that time, so I don't accept too many patients that I can't handle. There will be patients that I would say, no, at this moment in time, I'm not accepting patients. And the reason why is because I do give myself that time the following day to repertorize. And I found that to be much easier to do.
I agree, and I do the same thing over Zoom. However, if they come to my office, I mean, I've seen it with my teacher. He just opens up his drawer. He somehow just sticks his hand right in and pulls out the right remedy and hands it over. And so when someone is in your office, it's and instead of telling them to come back the next day or in a few days, it's just nice to have that remedy when it's clear, of course, to just be able to give it while they're there.
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned to do is, I'll do like a case taking, and then I will like tell the person, you go ahead and you just talk about whatever comes to your mind. And then that's where I will do my symptom selection. And that actually sometimes yields very important information. But if I have a case that needs to be studied, I will just frankly tell the person, I need to study your case for a while, and I'll be back with you as soon as I can. Give me a couple of days to work this through, look at all the options, et cetera, whatever happens to be, so to make sure that I'm accurate. Now, people, when they have people come into the place and they're not just working on Zoom, they can always give placebo and then say, come back in another week and let's see how you're doing. And then by that time, hopefully you've sorted out your next move.
That's true. Yeah. Placebos are great for that.
Yeah, but since we have to do so much of our work online nowadays, that makes it a little hard. So I just have to end up being honest, give me a few days to think this through.
One more question, madam.
Oh, we have another question too. Yes, go ahead.
Whenever the patient come to consult a doctor, that time he is not ready to share the actual problem. In that time, how we can take the cases? He is new
Um,
person to us.
That's where I would use something like placebo to have them just come back a few times. And as they get more familiar with you, they should be opening up more.
Okay, madam. And one more question. In pregnancy, in female patient, actually the actual date for delivery is over. After that also, she won't deliver to a baby. At that time, how to take the rubrics in that conditions? Is there any particular rubrics are there?
For
You mean for delayed labor?
Yes, sir.
Means
uh,
it's not delivering in time, or it's taking
Too much time.
late. All right.
yeah, that's I mean, it really depends on a lot of things like the time of ovulation. The estimated due date is not necessarily the right time for the baby to be born. So
Yeah.
this, is a little bit complicated because, they're assuming people have a 28-day cycle. They're assuming that people have ovulated on day 15. They're assuming the baby's going to be ready on such and such date, which, it rarely happens in reality. It can be 2 weeks before, it can be 2 to 3 weeks after, and it can all be perfectly normal. So unless there's really actually a medical problem, it's good just to let things just take their natural course.
It's okay, madam. But after we can wait for 2 weeks or more time. But then also she won't.
Oh yeah, everybody's desperate by the time they're 2 weeks past date. By the time you reach your due date, you're desperate. You're like, get this baby out of me. I'm totally suffering. I mean, maybe you other women can, chime in on this, but it is definitely a very uncomfortable thing, and we totally commiserate. And I remember like visiting my midwife with my first pregnancy, and her saying, you don't have the look in your eyes that you're suffering quite enough yet, so I know you're not ready. It's gonna go longer. And I'm like, no, not longer.
Delivery during complaints delayed delivery. Which remedy is there, Karina?
Kelly Fawcett says.
Sally Fox is the only remedy under that rubric.
Okay,
Alifos.
okay.
Okay. So I would like to proceed with one thing that when we are taking case, we tell patient to talk. So what you are observing at that time?
The
You are
behavior,
you are
the
looking.
behavior of the patient and the way he talk or she talk, and she is doing something in between while talking, and while she is talking, uh, the patient eyes where she is looking.
So how homeopath could do if homeopath himself is busy with writing down the case on paper,
No, the important points we can note
he
down.
is busy with repertorizing the case? How he can do? He can do one thing at a time. He can either focus on the patient, or either he can write down the things what he is telling.
In my view, first we focus on the patient, whatever he or she telling to us, and the action. And whenever patient approach to our clinic from outside, the gait,
Exactly.
how the patient walks, whatever. We need all these things. It's
Yeah.
very important.
Uh, this is important that to take down all symptoms, whatever patient is telling, it is also important. And this is also important. Patient cannot focus two things at a time. So he has to focus on the patient. He has to focus on the symptoms and he has to write down the symptom. So, what I mean to say, we need to find the way between so we can collect the symptom as well, we can observe the patient, and we can try to link up all those symptoms he is telling us. Means uh, means you need to track the disease state, right? How will you track the disease state? Patient might tell symptom whatever he is actually concerned to. He might tell only present symptom which are painful states. He might tell all those symptoms which are being obstacles in his lifestyle or his routines. He just need to overcome these issues. So he might tell only those symptoms. So we need to understand what the patient himself is concerned with, and we also need to focus what actually homeopath need in the case. So to understand this, we need to understand the symptom completeness along with linking up. We have studied in chronic disease that miasmatic disease is disease state on which the symptom grow, right? These state we see symptom grow on the miasm.
Sir, I
So
like.
we, huh?
Can I say something?
And what do you ask?
No, I'm just saying that if we write the symptom, presenting symptoms in the chronological order, like this happens 2 months before, and this happens 6 months before, and something happened 1 year before. So if we write the chronology, we can see that how the disease has progressed to this state.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm listening.
Okay. You are right. We need to write the chronology, but unless and until patient is not completing
Hmm.
his story,
Yes,
we
yes.
don't have to interrupt the patient. Let him tell whatever he want to tell us. Huh? Let him complete first, right? And then we have to track the symptom. We have to track the symptom means what I mean to say is we have to track the miasm actually. So, as you said, we have to write down that chronology. So, how back we can go? How much back we have to go in history?
Well, that really depends on if it's an acute case or a chronic case. If it's an acute case, we just need the presenting symptoms the way they are right now and what happened directly before the acute happened. But in a complex, a chronic case, we need to look at the medications they've been taking. We need to look at everything about their lifestyle, their history, their medical history. We need to, really get into the real meat of the matter.
Right. But still, question still remains that when we have to take and back history, a past history, how much past we have to go? It is necessary that we have to ask childhood history of all the cases.
In chronic cases,
Not for the all cases.
in chronic cases, yes.
I think it depends on, so what I like to know is when was the first time you felt you had symptoms, or that you expressed symptoms, or a need that something is not right. And sometimes you need to go as far back as to find out even how their mom's pregnancy was when they were in the womb, because even something like that, if the mother had a traumatic experience while pregnant, that's really, really useful. But if sometimes that it doesn't need to go as far back. If the childhood was pleasant and everything was pleasant, and then symptoms only arise, for example, during puberty, that would be most important, as that is a trigger point. So I think in a consult, we really need to find out when the triggers happened. What were the triggers? If there was any experience or event that impacted the person's life in any way.
Yes,
Right.
that's a good point. Mhm.
Right.
Yes.
Right. She has told really a nice point. See, patient is coming into a clinic and he begin his complaints with his present state. Right? We just don't have to cut off that thing and jump into his childhood. We need to track the symptom, go back with the symptom. He will tell the history of each symptom he is presenting with. If he has a symptom which has a chronic history, he will tell that it is 6 months old. It's on and off 1 year, on and off 2 years, on and off since uh, childhood. You need to go at the root of the symptom. Each and every symptoms root had to track, and that tracking might take you not always at but probably most of the cases it might take at the childhood, but you don't randomly jump into the childhood. Ask childhood बचपन में क्या हुआ था. So if he is guiding, he himself will guide you how you can go back and how long you have to go back. You have to go at the root of each and every symptom. Symptom itself will present the disease. Because Hahnemann has told disease is nothing but a collection of signs and symptom. Right?
Yep, that's all disease is the signs and symptoms that the vital force presents. And it doesn't matter if it's a mental symptom or it's a physical symptom or it's an emotional symptom. It all belongs to the greater whole of the person. We had a question here about the importance of modalities in case taking.
Yeah.
Modalities are so important. It can make something that's general into can anybody answer it? Modalities can take a general and make it into
What?
come on, guys.
To a particular, into a specific.
Into a characteristic.
Correct.
Right. So
I like
modalities.
Lifestyle.
I pay attention to those modalities that are very consistent. So I think that's really important. If it's something that's rare or it doesn't happen that often, then it really gets completely ignored. But if it's really, really often and consistent. So every day at 9 p.m. my fever is raging, is really, really consistent. So I think, or, sometimes when I eat rice, my face look is really not, sometimes doesn't get as much of an importance, but if it's all the time, or, their volume raises, their voice intonation raises when it's something that's really important, or it happens a lot, oh, of course, every time I exercise, I feel tons better, my muscles really improve. That intonation, I think, really shows how powerful a modality or how consistent it is in the person's life, and I think that deserves a lot of attention. So
Yeah.
we have to kind of filter out which of the modalities require attention and which ones don't.
Well, not everything that people consider a symptom in themselves is actually a usable symptom by us as well. So, but
Correct.
yeah, something like, they feel horrible if they go sit in the heat is important to us. If they feel better sitting by the fire is important to us. So the little details can really give us a lot of very, very helpful information. So modalities, whether they're time modalities or motion modalities, whether or not they're, what are the other types of modalities? Better and worse. There's great lists of modalities of better and worse. Better from heat, worse from heat, better from cold, better while eating. Worse 2 hours after eating, worse 3 hours after eating, worse 5 hours after eating, better not eating. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on of valuable possible symptoms. And you remember, when you see a female, we must always look into the menstrual history and the pregnancies and deliveries and postpartum. So remember that as well with a female. So yeah, so the importance of taking modalities can make or break your case.
I had a question, and this is the hardest part that we see so much in the materia medica about essences of remedies and delusions, and I find that the hardest because that doesn't come out very clear in a consultation. And I wanted to know if anyone had techniques.
Oh, sorry. Karina, your mic.
Okay, I don't
I'm by mistakenly muted you.
hang
Sorry.
on. Okay.
It's because you said delusion.
Yeah.
So
and
that triggered him to mute your microphone so that you didn't have to have this discussion.
Okay, going back to delusion. Yeah, so I find that really hard. So especially with remedies like platinum and suja, where there's so much that they don't say and so much that is unsaid. And I think that is so important in consults. But what techniques or tips does anybody have to help bring that forward and bring that picture clear? If the patient themselves is suja and they're secretive, there's so much that they're probably not expressing. And yeah, if anybody has any techniques that they use for those kinds of remedies that are more they're not as expressive.
Well, I'm not that much into delusion unless I actually have a mentally ill person that I'm trying to treat and they are literally having delusions. Otherwise, I don't even go there. A lot you can see just by people's interacting with you, and then you should be able to nail the case on more concrete things than the delusions or whether or not they're secretive. I mean, you're going to notice if a patient is really not open and things like that, you can pretty much pick up on that. Or if
And
somebody that needs platina, they're going to be usually very outgoing.
there is a much difference when we talk about this mind rubrics. Like one of the rubric you talk was secretive, and another very close encountering word is hide.
What word?
Hide.
Can you try that one more time?
HIDE.
Hide.
Hide. Huh? How we can recognize this? It's very long topic to begin to understand the exact those symptom mentally, whether we have to take. Just I would like to tell this word hiding. We see that we have seen that small kids take something and they put behind, and we can see that they are hiding something, right? You can see, but when you ask, nothing in my hand, we ask, what's in your hand? And they say, just pull their hand back, there's nothing in my hand, and we know that they are hiding something. Hiding, we can see that something is hiding. Secretive, you might never know. Secret is like confidential. You will not understand unless and until there from surrounding you get an hint. And otherwise from surrounding you think that there is something he is not revealing. We can study these things in much detail, um, but this is very very long topic. It's not a small one. Delusions, actually the word delusion in repertory introduced by Kent, and Kent use delusion or imagination, and imagination itself um, he called imagination of each person as a personal delusion, because whatever it's limited to him himself. If you look at the repertory, there is a word delusion and imagination, right? So imagination, what I am imagining in my mind might not be similar for everyone. And that's why there is much confusion when I imagine there is a ghost in my bed. I imagine there is a uh, someone is hiding in the dark behind my gates, and you can call these things as his imagination. But actually, what is delusion? Delusion itself is not a normal thing. Can anyone define what is delusion?
False belief,
Huh?
if false belief,
Yeah,
which is
false
by the
belief.
parts.
A false belief, a false sensation, a false feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if we're looking
And
here at Boninghausen, we have very, very few mental rubrics. It's Kent that got into all that kind of deep analysis of the patient's mind.
we can go with those understandings, but first we need to understand what exactly delusion means. You are taking delusion rubric for someone patient actually not deluded, and you probably take same rubric for the patient who is actually very much at the higher stages. uh, Praveen, just mute your mic so it won't disturb.
Everybody's muted except for me, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to be quiet.
So Karina's question was about the mental state, how we can understood unsaid, how we can read lines between sorry lines words between lines, right?
Right, correct.
Yeah, that's a very big topic. We need to go on that subconscious part. But I don't think, because today's session was on case taking and understanding the totality.
Or we could go full on out and call disease the delusion.
Yeah,
Just kidding, guys. I'm not going to do that.
it might take a really long time.
I'm just not even going to go there. You want everything to be as concrete as you can possibly make it in your case taking. Anything that you want to consider in your analysis
First
needs to
thing,
be a known fact. We want facts. Facts, not possibilities, not theories, not existential thinking. We want facts about the person and what they're going through and how they're suffering and when they started suffering and how they started suffering, why they're suffering, what led to their suffering. But we want it to be very, very concrete, down to earth. It can hold up in a trial in court, concrete. Okay, guys?
yeah. Often I tell how we can track those, how you can find the person in the crowd. Do you remember Tikwa?
Yes, I remember, of course.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's a repetition part. And another example I usually give about the disease, when we talk about myism itself give out the symptom, which might not go much deeper, but they grow, disease grow on the disease, right? So when we are talking, I give example of that, what you call, toran, toran. Anybody remembers?
Of course I do. Once I've heard it, it doesn't leave.
Yeah. So when we are tracking the totality, we are just making the list. We also have to make that list. When we talk, we need to go at the root of each and every symptom. That means we need to see whether the symptom has grown upon some another totality. did some another symptom. Okay. Madhu, do you remember Toran?
Yes, sir. And
Karina?
and there are different, I mean, there are flowers attached to one string. If we keep plucking the flowers, the disease will not be cured because the string which is attaching all the flowers is still there.
The concept which I explained was just very what do you call casual.
Hmm.
I told you in very casual way, but it's not that easy. We need symptom, we need location, extension, modalities. We need that means you need a complete symptom, right? Then only you understand that this symptom is going down, what is its roots, whether it's coming from beginning or it has begun in between the course of disease, right? So uh, how many people are there who has attended this class of chronic disease part? Madhu, you are there. Karina,
Yeah, I'm here.
do you remember that we had talked about Toran?
No, I don't know if I attended that one. This word doesn't sound familiar to me. What is this word?
Uh, word in English.
Yeah.
uh, Madhu, can you just Google that
I'm doing
picture
that. Yes, I'm doing that.
and you can share your screen?
Yeah, I don't think I attended or, yeah, because I'm a little lost right now.
Sir, can you type that word, sir?
Yes,
Shivkumaran, do you remember there we tie that toran on the doors with mango leaves and flowers?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That is just I am giving analogy to understand the complete state of disease, a
Oh,
miasmatic disease.
it's like a garland, sir. Like it's
Yeah,
not
like
garland.
it's like an garland.
it's something like this. Can you see?
Yeah,
In
but
Tamil, it's called as
yeah,
Thoranam, sir.
yeah.
So was it that, okay, now I think I'm vaguely remembering. Was it that we must track that thread which is
Yes,
holding all the parts together,
Do you remember
and that,
this?
yeah, and the leaves sort of are the different aspects of the different symptoms and expressions, and the goal is to find what is holding it all together and the whole
Yeah.
thread that is there throughout the patient's life. Is that what? um
yes,
okay.
Now, when you see just this every structure in this part is representing a symptom, and whole thing represents a whole state of disease totality, right? If you go at the root, each structure is beginning from only one basic structure, right? It's not from starting to end. It's not from beginning, right? Every leaves begin from string. Every flower begin from that string. If you remove only those symptoms, then it's not removing the disease. You need to find which of the thread is from starting to end, and it might go still in the future, right? It's just analogy. I am explaining to understand what symptom you need to pick from case taking. You need to uh, look at that symptom which are from beginning. Beginning means
From the start of the disease,
from the start.
like never been well since.
Since, right?
Yeah, so when did you first notice that you were not feeling well? It can be a good opener for that. And sometimes people won't know because they might have to like ask their parents, if they were a sickly child, it might be that they first started feeling poorly after having vaccines, or they might have been a sickly child. And you can go to the where, when, and why of that, hopefully with the help of others, unless somebody has shared that story with them.
So those symptoms which are most acute are more important. Those symptoms which represent the state of patient, they are in the present state, but they are from beginning of the sickness, holds the important part in the history. Now, complete symptom. What is complete symptom?
With location, sensation, modalities.
You can just give an example.
Yes. If somebody comes with knee pain, we will ask which knee, left or right, where in the knee, I mean front, back, sides. This is like we define the location. What sensation, what type of, I mean, what you feel when you are in pain. Somebody will say that this is squeezing, somebody say that there is some, I mean, it hurts. So it is like sore. And when I touch it, it feels pain. Somebody said, when I move, then we can say, modal, how does it get better? How does it get worse? So they can explain, when I get up from the seat, then I have more pain. When I keep walking, I feel better. Somebody will say, when I lie down on the bed, then I feel better. So it's like where, where, how do the person feel? How does it get better? And how does it get worse? And sometimes along with the main symptom, we also get some other symptom. Like when the person have diarrhea, they might have the headache. So along with one symptom, they can have another symptom, the concomitant symptom. And I also inquire about how did it start, like the onset of the symptom. Like it suddenly started, or was it the gradual onset, like the knee pain? Somebody can say, oh, one day my knee just started hurting very much. Somebody will say that the pain was there, very on and off, very mild pain.
Very good. Excellent examples.
Okay.
Yeah, so you want to
These,
ask as much as you can to get as
these
much
are
information.
factual symptoms, factual, what you are actually looking in the case. It's not we can have to think much. Huh? We don't have to interpret it for symptom. No interpretation should be there.
Yeah, we
You
really shouldn't
need-
interpret anything, guys. We want everything to be factual. I mean, Hahnemann never says in the Organon, and interpret this and interpret that, and then theorize this and theorize that. He's like, what makes it better? What makes it worse? How is it better? What does it feel like? What kind of pain is it? When does it happen? Very factual, concrete. information that we want to get from our patient. Now, we're going to get a little bit of information that isn't necessarily factual and concrete, and we can keep that in the back of our head because it might be useful, and that really might help us in the future. Or we might, sometimes I'll add another little thing here, is that occasionally when we first see a patient, they might need an acute remedy before they need a chronic remedy. For example, I had a patient a few months ago, I started treating, and she just had a recent situation in her life that made her very, very tearful and weepy. So we had to take care of that first with Ignatia before we got to her deeper symptoms. And that happens too. So you have to remain really open-minded, very broad-minded. Don't just, you don't want to get your ideas fixed on any one specific thing. You want to stay totally open-minded, see things for what they are, clarify the information as needed, and then do as the person's vital force gives you information, you then want to treat what we see. But never change remedies unless there are clear indications, and continue with the same remedy as long as it's still working until all the symptoms are gone.
Anyone else?
Sometimes the problem is there when the patient says, I only feel better by taking medicine. I have headache, very severe headache. How does it get better? When I take allopathic medicine, when I take painkiller. Then we have to inquire more, like in the morning, in the evening. Then we have to start suggesting like the modalities. They might not come up with the modality by themselves. So it's like in morning, how does it happen? When you wake up, how does you feel? In afternoon, in evening, when you go to the bed, how do you feel? So we have to go like more deep into it.
Yes, we do. And sometimes we might even like people to test out the problem. Next time when you're in that situation, try various things. See if it helps when you're coughing to drink water. Try hot water and cold water. You could ask people to try various things in order to clarify symptoms. If somebody has like a swollen foot, they've had an injury, and they can't really tell you if it's better for heat or cold because they haven't, had the injury long enough. You could say, try an ice pack or a cold water bath for your foot. You could try heat as well, and then let me know which feels better. Takes more time, but it will get the information.
Kumaran, your experience? Hello?
Sir, I am having one doubt, sir. Why we need to take totality, sir? Because in aphorism 171, Hahnemann mentioned in chronic cases we need multiple remedies, like a series of antipsoric remedies, like that he mentioned. Also in aphorism 8, also he mentioned, for example, if some symptoms comes out, you take that symptoms and treat it homeopathically, and then some sort of symptoms comes out, you take it and treat it homeopathically. If you treat the morbid signs and symptoms, group of symptoms, then group of symptoms, like that, patient, if you treat it homeopathically, automatically patient will get cure at the
Exactly.
end, like that. So
Exactly.
why we need to take
Totality.
totality at the For example, our teachers are going on stressing that you take, you don't miss any symptom, you probe like that. Why we need?
Exactly. I will tell you. Huh?
Oh, we could talk about aphorism 5 and 6 being the gateway to the patient.
Yeah. But what he is asking, we need. He says we can, if we can give remedy for a symptom. Huh? Why we need the whole thing when we just look at the symptom and give for that present state? Huh?
Well,
So
for an acute, we don't need all the symptoms or all the history. That's true.
yeah, but one more homeopathic principle is there. He has a minimum medicine. Law of simplex is there, huh? And law of minimum dose, minimum law of minimum and law of simplex, which means you need to give a minimum medicine. You can give, if you want, with law of similar, you can give one medicine for one symptom, right?
Well, that's just
So
going to
for
come back to
20,
bite you, because
huh,
if you only treat one symptom, then you're just going to get a whole bunch of other stuff just coming at you. So you need to have a good set of really concrete symptoms. And yeah, you don't
you need
always
to
use, I don't use very many symptoms generally. So
you
yeah,
need
Sivakumaran's right.
remedy that covers maximum. You don't have to select multiple remedies. Anyone says that disease might need more than one remedy. You
He
might
says it
need
will need a
series of
series.
remedies, but it
Any
doesn't mean
substantial
that
disease is going to need a series of remedies. And
Yes.
Sivakumaran's right, that you don't need to use that big history. What we want to do is select the important points out of that history and then make sure that it just all makes sense. Like I'll do a lot more talking with my patient than I will, but I won't write down everything they're saying, and I don't write down everything as a symptom, and I certainly don't, put down everything as a symptom, because like if you just put down everything that the patient complains about, you're just going to have utter chaos.
and if the patient is giving you one symptom, say uh, pain in abdomen, and you have to given for giving a remedy for that symptom, and how many option probability, what remedy could you select? You can give multiple remedy, 2 3 5 remedy also you can give, or you can give one remedy for one symptom also in the case, but probably that's not following the basic principle of homeopathy.
No, sir. No,
Okay?
it's not multiple remedy. For example, if it's troublesome to the patient, automatically they express, na. So
No, what I mean, you cannot prescribe multiple remedy. Huh?
sure, that's the basic truth.
You cannot, cannot give one remedy for a symptom and wait for presenting for next presentation and prescribe new remedy.
Yes, sir.
You cannot wait, because maximum you have to cover maximum symptom, and so that you can prescribe as much as less medicine for the patient.
Yes, sir. Sir, my point
No,
is, we can
you,
we can take all the symptoms which narrated by the patient. That
yeah, you can take,
there is no need to.
yeah,
There is,
yeah, yeah,
we don't need to probe and probe like what the
yeah,
modern
yeah,
school
yeah,
says like that.
yeah, yeah,
That's what I want to convey it.
yeah, right.
But we might want to probe
you can
when it's
just
better and when
prescribe
it's
on the
worse.
present state, but probably this presentation might give you next simillimum.
Yes, sir.
So next time, probably this remedy might not work. You need something different. What
And
Hanuman says,
if your case
it's
taking
not
is half decent, you should be able to get some results with a partial because it's very hard, there's
partial
going to be a
simillimum. Partial simillimum will always guide us for the right simillimum. So it's not wrong to select on partial totality.
which happens especially if we have somebody
But
who isn't very communicative.
and when you are selecting a remedy with large number of totality, that time you will not need to change the remedy frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are just assuming that your totality is right, probably you might need to change the remedy.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter if you are giving remedy only on the presenting state. But don't expect that this remedy will just wipe out the whole disease.
Yes, sir. Even for treating psoric symptoms, for example, we treat a patient with a psoric remedy. It's a non-psoric remedy. We can treat with acute remedy or intercurrent some remedies. Uh, Later, we try to treat psoric symptoms. Even we can't expect we can cure all psoric symptoms with one antipsoric remedy. There
Right.
also we need a series of remedies. This is what I feel in my experience, sir. Can
Yes,
you?
that's my
Exactly.
experience as
No
well.
chronic disease will not wipe out with the single remedy. Anyone himself told chronic disease might need a series of remedy, even antipsoric remedy. And more important, we need to learn that while selection of remedy, what is important,
Pardon?
and what is important while selection of remedy is that you have totality of symptom. Your remedy is matching the totality of symptom.
Yes,
Huh?
sir.
Still, it is important to select that remedy which have affinity of the symptom drug to act on the particular system.
Yeah,
To
this is a very important point. You need a
of which the
remedy.
patient actually having most important presentation in his case,
The
or
pathology. So
what
if
in
you
his
have heart
pathology,
disease,
right, in
right,
his
so
pathology.
if you have a patient that has high blood pressure, you need to make sure that you select a remedy that has an effect on heart and circulation, for example. If you have a patient that has a glandular problem with some of their hormones, you need to make sure that the
The
remedy
remedy goes
covers
there
glands.
at first high priority, affinity. Otherwise, every remedy has all the symptoms, and you cannot think minor symptom of the remedy might work on the major symptom of the patient. It will not work, and we see failures.
Which is one of the really important reasons why we need to understand the location and understand why there is that pathology there. Because I mean, like if there's edema in the legs, you know, we need to know, is that coming from the kidneys, coming from the heart? And then you need the appropriate remedy for where it's actually
And
coming from.
one more thing, when we are deciding a different remedy for acute and different remedy for the chronic ones, we I think I should come up with this point. Recently, lot of people making a big error treating a pandemic with miasmatic background. Have you seen that? In COVID cases, lot of people go with miasmatic remedies. Is there any relation of miasm with COVID?
Can anybody answer that?
I feel it's sorry, sir.
Really? Madhu?
No, sir, it's a acute disease.
Karina? If the patient is taking one
Sorry,
month.
my mic was off. I think it's also acute. I've treated COVID cases acutely, and yeah, I've not used any anti-miasmatic.
Later
Well-
on, we can give the anti-miasmatic.
No,
Which we
no.
probably
See,
need to.
this remedy have those miasm, no doubt. Whatever you are giving
Mhm.
have the miasm, but you don't have to think remedy as according to the miasm. When we think about miasm, you are thinking about the chronic disease.
Right,
And
because,
COVID itself is not an chronic disease. It
right,
won't grow on chronic disease. It
has,
has his own condition to develop unconditionally. For all the cases, it will affect or infect unconditionally every individual, irrespective to whatever miasm he or she is having. Right? So Hahnemann
guys,
himself categorize this all epidemics, sporadics, and pandemic under acute diseases, and they should be treated with acute remedies. Treatment of acute disease is different. It's not similar to the chronic one.
we could actually read this segment from the chronic diseases because it is a acute disease, right?
Which page number?
Oh, the page number. Good question. I just pulled it up on my phone.
Okay.
Let me see if I have it with a page number. But it's very important to remember that it is acute and it does not stem from spora or anything else because everybody can get acute fevers. Okay, but I can't find the page number right now. I'll have to send it over later. Okay, so influenza is not a fixed disease. It's a flexible disease. There are certain kinds of acute diseases that are fixed that afflict a person once in a lifetime and they become immune, right? Because people, they get measles only once. But influenza is in the epidemic section in the chronic diseases. And Hahnemann says these epidemic intermediate, it's into the segment of intermediate diseases because they just happen occasionally, appear in the form of a fever. There are various types of fever. Okay. And he says, since I have learned to cure chronic diseases and maladies by a homeopathic extirpation of the sporic origin, I have found the epidemically current intermittent fevers almost every year different in their character. Now, by intermittent fevers, he doesn't mean malaria or quartane fever. He means the ones that happen and come around every year. And that every year they require generally a different medicine. One year arsenicum, another belladonna, another antimonium crudum or spigella, aconite with ipecac, alternating with nux, natmur, opium, cyna, alone or alternating with capsicum or capsicum alone, or carb or pulsatilla, or the carbos or arnica alone or an alteration with ipecac, and that they are then easily cured. And then he says, look at the fever section in Boninghausen's repertory. And it's good to give medicine during the absence of fever if possible. And he says that cinchona is only appropriate for endemic intermittent fever of marshy regions. Now we know what that is, right? What disease would that be? Endemic intermittent fever in marshy regions.
Marshy regions is malarial.
Yes. So he says China is only fitting for malaria.
Yeah.
So it's these type people will get sick from influenza disease. They'll get sick from influenza even if they're having antisporic treatment. And the influenza type diseases are changeable and in different character depending on the year and the place. And their treatment changes with each year's epidemic. But we may or may not use an antisporic remedy depending on what the vital force shows us. Because people with corona or COVID, if we want to use that word, we call it corona in Israel, it means crown, you know?
Corona, we have a lot of misunderstanding actually.
Yeah, if you
about
just
the
take the whole scary
affinity.
thing out of it and you just say fever disease, yeah, then it makes it just a lot easier. And you just treat that fever disease. And
Yeah.
that one, it might need.
Just forget that word.
Forget those
Basically,
pictures you saw that you gave you the television
basically,
disease.
basically in this pandemic, you cannot say it has a site in the lung, site of disease. A primary site means a location of disease in lung. But today it has been portraying in like that it's a lung disease. Am I not audible?
You are
You're
audible.
audible.
You're audible, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily really actually, I mean, this is kind of like a manufactured disease, you know, made in China and dispersed around the world. And it is a strange disease because you'll have, you know, people in the same house that will need different remedies where generally like in a flu, you just kind of like
Why?
give
Why
everybody
I
the
am
same thing.
I'd like to
interested?
read after. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Why I am interested in to tell the location in this disease is that unless and until you won't understand where the site of disease present, you need to select that remedy to that will go and act on that site.
Hmm.
Huh?
I'd like to read,
Affinity.
Yes, sir. Affinities.
I'd like to read aphorism 100. I think this,
Indisposition?
yeah, this is the only edition. I have Wenda's.
Go on, read.
In the investigation of the symptom complex of epidemic or sporadic diseases, it makes no difference if something similar has ever appeared before under the same or any other name.
Mhm.
The novelty or peculiarity of such a contagion makes no difference either in its examination or its cure, since the physician presupposes that the pure image of each and every presently reigning disease is new and unknown. He must explore it for himself from the ground up if he wants to be a genuine, thorough medical art practitioner who never puts conjecture in the place of perception and never assumes, without carefully spying all of the disease manifestations, that the treatment for a case of disease entrusted to him is either entirely or partially known. This is all the more the case here, since each reigning epidemic is in many regards a phenomenon of a particular kind that is found by exact investigation to deviate greatly from all former epidemics, which have been falsely labeled with certain names. This is true of all contagious diseases except those that stem from an invariable infectious tinder, such as smallpox, measles, etc.
Yes.
Um,
As we were saying, it's not a fixed disease. And you can't
Mhm.
have fixed ideas about it because it's a fluctuating disease.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next aphorism, he says, it may well be that the physician does not get a perception of the complete image of the epidemic disease with the first case he encounters, since each such collective disease only brings the complex of its symptoms to the light of day with the closer observation of several cases. Meanwhile, the carefully investigating physician can often come so close to the true state, even with the first or second patient, that he becomes alive to the characteristic image of the disease and then finds a fitting homeopathically commensurate remedy for it.
It's mass totality. In epidemic or acute, he's saying mass totality is important. With single patient, whatever totality is coming, what you cannot track a whole disease. Labeling that next patient will be coming with the same presentation. So here he is talking about you need to monitor not only a single case or a multiple number of cases. And then you can tell that this epidemic may have this and this presentation. In this, so suppose he has monitored about say 50 cases, and all 50 cases might not present in the same way with the same totality, but you can overall calculate the total number of symptoms between those all 50 cases, and that is more important. If you go with next aphorism, you will see he will be talking for about the genus epidemic
Hmm.
from that totality,
Right.
mass totality of means collective symptoms of multiple number of patient, whatever I am talking about, the mass totality. So
Yeah.
here in
So
every epidemic, yes.
he goes, on one hand, the general signs, loss of appetite, sleeplessness, obtain their own narrower determinations. On the other hand, the more marked, particular, and at least in this connection, rare symptoms belonging to only a few diseases emerge and form what is characteristic for this epidemic.
Yeah, You cannot label characteritis for epidemic with just a symptom of one or two cases. He's saying you need the collective totality from all the patients, maximum number of patients, and that will guide you the characteritis symptom of the epidemic disease. And this epidemic, and he's talking about locality. Epidemic limited to a locality. Locality doesn't mean same pandemically. Means whatever is say picture in my location might not be same at Delhi, or might not be same at Israel or America. Each locality will present its own different characteristics. And he says, Nasrin. Okay. So,
So coming up with the genus Epidemicus is a very complicated thing to do, and it's really intended to be in your own region, your own city.
if you
It's
change
supposed to
the
be
town,
kind of a small
your
thing.
genus epidemics is going to change. If you change the area of locality, we have seen a small epidemic in what do you call गली छोटी छोटी गली है ना, हाँ उसमें उसमें एपिडेमिक होता है अपने it's in the town, it's might not be same in the different town, and you're taking totality of this town A, and calculating that genus epidemic, and you're giving that remedy in the different town.
Is it so, sir?
That is wrong.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, for example, Karina said that last night,
See,
that
if I am
Andre said that the genus Epidemicus might be the most commonly needed remedy and that he's seen was bryonia, right, Karina?
Yep, that's correct. So he did
But-
say that it depended on your location, and he found that in his location in India, it was mostly bryonia, but he did see other cases with different remedies.
what I
Because see,
actually-
I've only seen a couple of bryonia, but I've seen more pulsatilla and more gelsemium.
So
And then
I
of course some other things as well.
Bryonia did very good, but curative. I have seen lot of bryonia cases, lac cases, then pulsatilla, then even gelsemium,
Phosphorus.
phosphorus. Yeah, phosphorus.
We saw more phosphorus during the like the first and second wave. We're just at the tail end of our fourth wave here in Israel. And there's less phosphorus this time.
Okay.
So it really, you have to kind of look at the yeah, so Nasreen's saying that she's not able to hear us.
Nasreen?
But you know, we never, ever, ever go wrong when we actually see that patient and help them with their actual symptoms instead of postulating what may or may not be,
Nasreen,
or looking at lists of what
Nasreen
remedies
is
have been
not
given
there.
elsewhere. Oh, now she's gone because she says she can't hear.
Okay.
message on phone that some
Sir,
problem
ma'am.
that our voice is not audible for a long time.
Whose?
Nasreen message that our voice is not audible for a long time. And there is some
Wonder what
network
went
problem.
wrong.
Probably there might be issue at her side in the speakers. Otherwise, many people would have experienced the same.
Yes. I also
Oh,
have,
yes.
I should take leave now.
Yeah?
Yes,
What is time?
it's 12:40. I have to make my son sleep.
Oh, okay.
Yes, he's waiting for me.
Okay, okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay then.
Bye-bye.
Hello for everyone. My one kind suggestion. If anybody, it might be an animal, human, is not able to deliver to a baby, just do one thing: take a banana root, tie around the belly, wait for half an hour to 1 hour. The parturition will begin. It's amazing. Just try it if you
Means
get the
you are
chance.
saying banana leaf. You
Not a leaf.
tie a banana leaf
It's a root.
tying.
It's a
Acha.
root, not a leaf.
Okay.
Just try it if you get the chance.
In animals, you are saying.
In animals, in humans also, sir.
Interesting.
It's a simple trick. Just you can try.
Yeah, I wonder how I'd be able to break into somebody's farm and get to their banana tree and get a banana root. Wonder what would happen. We don't have a banana tree. We live too high in the hills. But when I go down near the coast, there's all the banana groves and they're all privately owned. I wonder how that would work out.
Okay. Any
But
other
good tip.
questions?
Thank you. Thank you for the tip.
Welcome, madam.
Any other questions? Mubashira? Hello.
Shala?
I think they are exited. They leave the group, this session. I think so.
No, they are there. If they have lived, it won't show us.
Dr. Shivkumar, Dr. Sultan, Mubashir, and we four.
Yeah.
Madam, genus epidemicus means it indicate the remedy or character of the disease, epidemic disease, ma'am.
Well, theoretically, when we have an epidemic and we see enough people, we should see that there's indications that are similar between all of them. But it might be,
Basically, what Hahnemann talks here was that in epidemic disease, when people, multiple people or many people are getting infection, you cannot decide the character of disease by seeing only one or two cases. Here he says to see the character of disease, you need to look at the multiple number of cases, large number of cases. And this large number of cases will give you a right character of the disease. And from this characteristic symptom of disease, you need to analyze genus epidemic.
No, my question is whether it indicates the word genus epidemicus indicates the character of the disease or the selected remedy.
It's
well, they have to
remedy.
match. The
It
selected
is,
remedy
it's
has to
about
match.
remedy. It's about remedy.
No, sir. It's in different translations. Hanuman clearly mentioned genus
Hmm.
epidemicus means genus. It indicates only the character of the epidemic state, which point out the well chosen remedy. Like that he mentioned in 241, sir.
Which translation are you talking about?
I am talking about Vanda Brewster orally, sir.
Okay.
That's why.
Okay. It's same actually. Genus epidemic is denoted for a character of disease and
Yeah,
which we are
241
referring
is endemic fevers, endemic illnesses.
Just a minute, ma'am.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Epidemics of intermittent fever in situations where they are not endemic. So it would be that this isn't, like a malaria. Composed
It's
of a
within the
singular.
locality. Endemic means a large locality, a spread more larger locality.
No, sir. Endemic is a limited locality, sir. With
Endemic.
endemic is limited locality, sir. Epidemic is it's beyond the locality, sir.
Right.
Epidemic.
Yes, sir. Epi means it's a large or extended
Endemic
like that.
means within locality.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Endemic means specific to a region, area, or, climate. Like, malaria is endemic to the South Seas Islands. Should I read that aphorism?
Okay.
Wait a minute, ma'am.
Which aphorism are you reading?
This is 241. But Sanjay had a really, really important thing to talk about coronavirus, to mention about where the location of the disease is. And the information that has been gathered so far is that, it's not necessarily a disease of the lungs, more a disease of the blood. And then sometimes people get a secondary infection of the lungs because the blood tends to be altered in coronavirus. So you need a remedy that is going to affect the
The blood.
blood.
Yeah.
And that was an important point that he was trying to make before we started talking about the treatment of epidemics.
Basically, disease begins with influenza. Huh? It begins with upper respiratory infection. But as soon
Yeah.
as it goes into throat, basically it won't get in the lungs as a primary lesion. It enters into blood from throat and then it affects whole vascular system. It's inflame the whole endothelial lines of the blood vessels, and that gives out blood. And we have seen in many scan what the doctors are calling a pneumonia. Whose microphone? Who's typing?
That was me. It was me.
Hmm.
I was typing on the chat. I was answering a question.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a problem with the transfer of oxygen from the blood, little tiny blood clots in the lungs.
Actually, in pneumonia, there is nothing as such. Actually, there is a inflammation at the capillaries. Inflammation of capillaries at the alveoli of lungs.
Mhm.
And that gives blood off, means it bleeds into alveoli.
And it can make clots. The
And
little
that
clots
clot
keeps the
remains
uptake from
there.
oxygen.
And after that, it gives inflammatory stage, rises to in the lung. That times it releases the mucus, thick mucus. That means disease not going in the lung from above downwards, but it's going in the blood, and from blood it's coming in the all the organs, vital organs, you can see. It's going in the lungs, it's going in the bone marrow, it's going in the liver, kidneys, and even in the brain.
It's just not a normal disease.
And more important, inflammatory conditions of whole vascular endothelial lines of the blood vessel. This is a
But
primary site.
initially, when COVID started, it started with a very different picture than what it is now. People in China were, and initially when it even hit, not India, Europe, UK, patients were complaining that they didn't really have any symptoms initially, in fact. And they were quite asymptomatic, but then later, they were having symptoms. So, and the symptoms were sudden. So that's what I didn't understand at the beginning of this epidemic, that they weren't having very clear-cut symptoms. It wasn't a lead up to their existing condition where suddenly they would have all this frustration and a sudden weakness and sudden pain. And I think that's what also contributed to their the fast, rapid way in which it just passed on initially, because people were asymptomatic and then later the symptoms came.
Yeah.
And that's what confused me initially. It's not like that now, but it was like that before.
Yeah, now, I mean, you're seeing that people are getting sick with something very similar to a flu or with just
Okay.
like a bad headache and a sore throat. And then if they're not well and their fever's over, then sometimes people will go totally sick after that initial phase is over. That's when the critical period is. Hey, what do we have here? Oh, we are doing a screen share.
Ma'am,
If
this
the
is
character of the epidemic disease is discovered according to the symptom complex, common to all the patients, this will point to the homeopathically fitting specific remedy for the totality of the cases. This remedy almost always helped in those patients who enjoyed tolerably good health before the epidemic, that is, who were not chronically sick with spora. So this is your 241.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so they're saying that that remedy will help for people who are not bothered by chronic spora.
Okay.
But we know that anyway, that we need to often follow up with an antisporic, even in a not endemic, but an epidemic or any kind of acute illness as well.
Ma'am, in one place, Hanuman mentioned, even though there is a vast totality, instead a patient having some psoric vesicles, that is vesicular symptoms. He mentioned some specific remedies, like he mentioned 3 remedies: sulfur, carboveg, and one another remedy, sepia. Then you treat the disease like that.
Sepia. Do you
Yeah.
think you have sepia? Mhm.
Yes, ma'am. So he himself mentioned, instead of we having totality of multiple symptoms totality, he mentioned you just prescribe any one of these 3 remedies. After that, you proceed like that. So he came to the point
Are you
treat.
talking about the recent infections of spora that haven't been on the skin very long will respond to sulfur, carbovegetabilis, and or sepia, right? That's where you're going with this?
Yeah, it's a primary symptoms of psora, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so those 3.
Yes, he suggested, ma'am. That's why I asked. You also mentioned some on article, na, ma'am. Different specifics mentioned by Hahnemann. You often share, once share na in group.
Mm-hmm.
That also contains different specifics, ma'am. For example, some abdominal troubles if the patient having an axomica like that. More than 40 specifics like that you mentioned once in our group, ma'am.
Yeah, the intercurrent remedies.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, so if you're in the middle of treating somebody and they get like a really bad stomach ache because they've eaten a lot of heavy pastry, we can give them pulsatilla without really interrupting their treatment, as one example.
Yes, Sanjay sir mentioned we should not prescribe multiple remedies at a time, but we can prescribe several remedies one by one if the patient needed. That is not wrong. Is it
No,
correct, ma'am?
that's correct.
Yes. Okay.
I think we are done for now.
Read
Yes, sir.
that
It's
as
best. I feel it's best to recollect.
Sanjay is tired. Not a long enough nap today, Dr. G?
Ma'am, regarding affinity,
Yeah.
In most of these cases, those who having polyp in gallbladder,
Gallbladder stones?
ma'am,
Polyp.
gallbladder polyp. Leptandra widely helpful in my practice, ma'am. So I feel
Laptandra.
yes, sir. Leptandra I used to give from 0/1 to 5 in different occasions. So it will help. It helped in many patients, sir.
Yeah. I have used Laptandra in many, but in intestinal bleeding.
Yeah, so you might need to follow that up with a deeper acting remedy.
Yeah.
Ma'am, we can read Boningas and Therapeutic Packet book in a session, ma'am, because we want to know more.
Oh, did you see Devera gave us a very nice talk about this and the concordances. Did you watch that Devera did?
Ma'am, we will
I
read
was
from the
not there.
beginning.
He was not there during that session.
But he can go to the YouTube channel and check out Devira's video. I
Okay,
had
okay.
her do the concordances, and I hope to have her come back and tell us how to use Heiner Fry's repertory, which is very, very handy as well. But yeah, I mean, you can see that my book is in shreds. I love it. And in the therapeutic pocketbook, there's no delusion remedies or delusion rubrics as it should be. Anyway, so yeah, there's, when it comes to homeopathy, it's an endless amount of learning and an endless amount of things that we can talk about. And I hope that everybody got something out of today's session.
Yes, ma'am, we feel sometimes we feel difficulties. For example, if a patient comes with right-sided headache and patient having the sensation like burning, it's better by a tight bandage. It aggravated when enter into sun, like this complaints. For example, if in one proving we get all these four symptoms. In one remedy, we get two or three symptoms like right-sided, burning sensation, and ameliorated by tight bandage. But we miss aggravation by enter into sun, like that. So there, one remedy having the completed symptoms with these three symptoms, one remedy having the completed symptom with four symptoms, ma'am. The compilation of all the four, like right-sided and burning sensation, amelioration by tight bandage, aggravation by enter into the sun. In one proving, we miss one thing, ma'am. How to reach? Is there any possibility to take symptoms directly from proving without repertory? Is it possible? In any way we can, in any software we having to search patient symptoms into directly, can we take it from proving data? So please guide.
Well, the repertory that is best for that type of work is Heiner Fry's repertory. What's his repertory called? Does anybody remember off the top of their head? Polarity analysis is best for that kind of work. And outside of that,
Which contains only data, that repertory which contains only from proving data, ma'am.
yeah, it's Boninghausen's therapeutic pocketbook put into a computer program repertory. And it's very, very, very good for that kind of work. I very much like it. And then you can also use Boger, his card repertory, and just click the boxes. And these are both very broad. These are where you have to have a very, very focused case. And and be able to think very open-minded. But I would recommend either Boger's card repertory or Heiner Fry's polarity analysis when we have a situation like that. Or, of course, we can always just use the proving data and not use a repertory at all if we're swift enough. Not all of us have that much, are that familiar with the proving data that we're really good at it. So a lot of us need to have like a repertory to, help us think things through.
Okay, ma'am.
I mean, like, you know, Bonninghausen tells us to use his therapeutic pocketbook and go sit side by side with the proving data and learn the genius of the remedy through the rubrics. And then that just makes us so smart as homeopaths. But, you know, with all the Kantian influence nowadays, where people are looking ever so much more at the personality and different things like that, it's hard to get people to really get down to basics like that because they just frankly don't want to.
Ma'am, in Bonniers and therapeutic pocketbook, we having small rubrics like it doesn't contain complete symptom now, ma'am. It's simple rubrics like it's a fragments of only the fragments of
Yeah.
complete symptom now, ma'am.
Right.
So,
So you
I
have to put it together like Legos. You know the children's toy Legos? I should have a set of Legos sitting in here. Actually, I do, because this is where we keep the grandchildren's toys. But yeah, you have to put it together. You have to take this piece and that piece and this piece and that piece and set them all together. You can either do that by hand, which is perfectly feasible, or you can do it with, let's say, polarity analysis. I'm sure you learned hand repping in school, right?
Oh.
Does everybody learn that in school?
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so we can do that too.
Only we 4 available. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Uh-huh. You know, repping by hand. This is actually typed, but you know, you get it. You know how to do this.
Ma'am, which one is this?
This is Bonninghausen's Therapeutic Pocketbook, but the Allen edition.
Okay.
Okay, guys, it's getting late. Join us next time.
Sure, ma'am.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, ma'am.